Hey there, welcome to our AP Legal Zone podcast, brought to you by AP Lawyers. We are your top fix for all weekly law updates, including family, immigration, wills, and estates law. Just a friendly reminder, we are not your lawyers, and everything contained in this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and not to be construed as legal advice. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you can stay connected with any updates and get notified about our new episodes.
Hello, I'm Angela Princewill from AP Lawyers, and my topic for you today is effective co-parenting for parents with infants and toddlers. So essentially, very young children. And this is more just tips and ideas for you to think about when you're thinking of what parenting term is in the children's best interest. And by term, I mean what parenting arrangements, what kind of plans would work best for children in this age range. And most importantly, not just what the parents want when we're saying the best interest of the child. I recognize happy parents make for happy children, but really just looking at what are the needs of your child and what's the best way to meet them. And I mean, there's a variety of parenting plans that are out there, and a lot of people talk to friends, and we often have clients coming in and they have an idea of, I want the child 50% of the time. We could do every other week. We could do, a 2-2-3 schedule where, the child is moving between both homes. And these are all well-intentioned. I mean, obviously, most parents want to be actively involved in their children's lives. All of the social science evidence supports it. And even the law says that, the children should spend time with both parents, as maximum time, as much as is deemed to be in their best interest. Obviously, the law stayed away from stating equal parenting time, knowing that equal parenting time is not necessarily always in the best interest of the children. So working with the law as we currently have it, if you have a child that's say 18 months old, and you're the parent that wants more parenting time with that child, well, what do you do, right? And I recognize maybe you want that equal time because, of course, your time, the child would benefit from being with you. But let's look at a few things here. Around sort of that age range, children are just starting out, maybe starting to try new foods. They're not, the repertoire of sort of the things they can eat are not as large. So there's new foods that are being tried. The children have sort of a schedule. There's also their vocabulary is not that large, so they might be able to express discomfort and things like that, but maybe not as much. And then for those even younger, well, there's considerations around, is the child breastfeeding? What kind of schedule is the child on? So to make this easier, I think I'll just break this into two groups within these young children that I'm talking about. And let's call one group, say, age 0 to 12, and the other group 12 to 18 months. And I'll just kind of cap my conversation there. And I'm not offering you any hard and fast rules. These are just ideas to get you thinking. And I'm going to approach this first from the perspective of the parent that's asking for more time. And if you're the parent that thinks that more time is not appropriate under the circumstances, I'll also approach it from your angle. So parent wanting more time. For a child that's 0 to 12, when you're asking for more parenting time, consider, well, were you living together? So there's parties that obviously were, are parents, but never live together. And so it's a different set of considerations if you've been living together, right? And you've been involved in caring for the child. So if you have within that 0 to 12 month range, if you were involved in diaper changes, if you were involved with, feeding the child, for example, were you always up at night when the child woke up with the mom? Did you alternate sort of these childcare responsibilities? Did you ever have time with the child all by yourself while the other parent, be it mom or dad, whoever the primary care parent, or if was there even a primary care parent? So how involved were you? That's a very important consideration because most children around this age can't really talk and express themselves. So, if you're not used to caring for them, then you might not intuitively know when they need, a diaper change, for example. If they're being breastfed, and it's being expressed into a bottle, for example, do you know how to manage those? Because there's rules around these things, and they could lead to really huge safety concerns if, say, a child is fed with food or formula that with formula or sort of breast milk that has expired, for example. So those are things that are very important they're important at every stage, but at this stage, because the child can't speak and it's important, your involvement in the child's life is very important. So if you were very hands-on, took time off to be with the child, some kind of maternity or paternity leave, and you're very involved and very in tune with the child's needs, then of course there's no, harm in trying to get to sort of that split parenting schedule, equal shared parenting schedule right away, if that's what you would like to have. If, however, you weren't as involved because your family dynamic had the other parent caring for the child most of the time, or let's say the child's even still breastfeeding and you're not and the other parent has never sort of expressed their breast milk for you to use in feeding the child and things like that, then you can see that there will be logistical issues there, right? If you've never really changed the child's diaper or done a bath time routine, I can see that being learned. Quite frankly, I don't think that that's something that in and of itself should make it a no for you to have, that maybe equal parenting time, if that's what you want. And I'm just going to assume that we're talking equal parenting time here, but you could see that, it would range, it would apply to anything from one overnight to, equal parenting time, whatever it is you're looking for there. But if you're hands-on, attuned to things, and it's easier to just kind of go big in your asking. But if you're not, then you don't want to look delusional, right? Then it becomes, well, are you don't want to put yourself in a position where it looks like, well, is this parent really thinking in the child's best interest? If you've never had a bath time, for example, then maybe propose starting small, maybe starting with, doing bath time routines and things like that, and bringing the child back later if that's appropriate. Or if you, depending on the relationship between your ex and yourself, well, is it something that you may be able to attend at the other parent's home to participate in these things? And I know, like, there's always that concern from the other side, well, you were never involved when we were together, which is fine. That's a resistance you should expect. But now you're separated and now you want to be more involved because the family dynamic is changing, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I would say start small. You need to start small. You need to make have realistic expectations for yourself, and also maybe put up sort of a proposal that has you maybe taking the child for a few hours. If the child comes back, no rashes, that means, you're in tune with the child's needs. You're doing these frequent diaper changes. So that's fantastic. Now, if the child is, say, between 12 and 18 months, they're a little bit more communicative, but they're still not speaking as well, right? It might be able to. It's been a long time that I've had kids that young, but if I remember, they might still be able to, you might be able to tell the difference between when they're now hungry, or they might be able to even tell you, if not in very smooth sentences, but they might be able to express themselves a little bit. It's a lot more fun. So you can have, more activities with them, as opposed to when they're much smaller and you just sort of holding them and they have less mobility, right? Again, the same principles would sort of apply. If you've been involved from the get-go, then that's fine. You might be able to just make a big jump in terms of your parenting ask. If not, I still suggest start little going forward. Now, if the main factor to remember in this case is how are you going to communicate with the other parent? Because it's one thing to have the parenting schedule that both parents get to enjoy time with the child. But remember, the only consideration in all of this is what is in the child's best interest. Because the child is so young, it's very important at this stage that both parents be able to communicate effectively. If you cannot communicate effectively, then you are putting yourself in a position where it doesn't matter how involved you are as a parent. If you're asking for sort of an equal shared parenting time, it's automatically, you're just setting yourself up for it to appear as though it's automatically not going to work. And what do I mean by effective co-parenting? Well, there's a lot of details required for children this age. The other parent might want to know, you guys might need to keep journals of sleep times, like how many naps did they take during the day? What time did they take those naps? Bowel movements, for example. A lot of parents track how many bowel movements the child had in the day. So you have to be willing to do this. If the child tries a new food, well, you want to put what time, what food they tried and at what time. And this is important because if the child has some sort of medical episode while at the other parent's home, you're not there, right? And the other parent needs to be able to know very quickly that, the baby tried, peanut butter today. It might be an allergic reaction to peanuts. And that would really help in sort of dealing with that situation very quickly rather than allowing it to escalate to something bigger than it needs to be. And I recognize sometimes one parent might not be as detailed as the other in terms of kind of tracking and communicating and keeping this information, but you have to try. I think that's the takeaway here. You really need to try. You really need to be detailed, and you need to really tone down the negativity, because if you engage and somehow it's a negative atmosphere, you're not able to communicate with each other, the child suffers, like literally in these cases, because the child cannot communicate and they're relying on, and the other parent is relying on you for this information, right? Now, if you're that parent that has the child primarily after separation, and you have the other party seeking more parenting time, again, remember, it's what's best for the child. As much time as the child can spend with the other parent is generally considered to be in that child's best interest. I use the word generally because obviously we know that there's some cases where even no parenting time at all might be in the child's best interest. It's rare, but it does happen. So again, it's important that you are able to communicate with the other parent and maybe keep an open mind, right? If they are asking for, equal parenting time, for example, it might be too much given the history of the child care arrangements up until that point in time. So maybe propose gradual a graduating plan, for example, to make sure that you feel more comfortable, you can get to trust the other parent, rather than just saying no to a shared parenting time and just leaving it there. It would look good on you if you end up in litigation. And again, remembering it's a nice experience for the parent and child to bond if it is safe to do so. So assuming it's safe to do so, some options include, well, do you want to maybe propose a supervised arrangement? If you're amicable with the person and there's no safety concerns, maybe you could supervise some of the initial visits yourself. If the other party has maybe, family that are older or more experienced that can assist them, maybe you could start with a few hour visits where they spend time with the child at that, either at a grandparent's home, aunt's home, whatever it is, with someone more experienced that could work them through it until you eventually start to get more comfortable. Give them, share your journals with them. I've actually have clients who would send notes with, toddlers and infants when they're going for parenting visits, saying things like, feed her this is essentially saying exactly what time they fed the kid. So, and letting the other party know, well, the child's on a 2-hour feeding schedule or on a 3-hour feeding schedule, check the diaper, like giving instructions. And it might be annoying to you to have to do that for the other person, but again, you're doing it for your child. So you have to find a way to communicate with the other parent, knowing that if your child's hungry, he or she may not be able to express it as well. And also it's important for you to give the other party a journal of the child's schedule, for example. How many naps has the child had their nap for that day? Because the last thing you want is your routine being messed up. You also want them to know, getting back to the food and safety issues. If the child just tried, a new meal a couple of hours before leaving and there's a reaction, you want the other party to be able to know to react quickly. medications that the child may be taking, what times do they need to take them. It's important to let the other side know so that they can understand why it's important to return the child to you at a particular time. So it's a lot of detail and communication required when you're dealing with parenting for children at this very young age. And I know it's you. A lot of times the default and easy way is to say, well, no parenting time, just come see the child while in my care. And, that sort of solves things. And no one has to go into all of these nitty gritty. But, there are parents that want to be involved, and, it is what it is. It's a good thing for the most part. Obviously, again, I keep saying for the most part, because there are times where it's not appropriate. And we recognize that, and we're able to work with you at that point to ensure that the child is taken care of, because our focus always is in the best interest of your child. But if it's just more, you don't feel comfortable with them, they haven't had a chance to prove to you that they can actually take care of the child, then the same advice goes, which is give them a chance to start slowly. And you both need to find a way to keep communications flowing. You could also use some of the parenting apps as well. I say journals because sometimes it's easier for people to just take a journal and they can write in it. But some people would rather, do messaging on the apps, documenting exactly when a child slept, what they ate, things like that, so that the other parent is in the know. And it's also easier if you have a doctor's appointment, for example, and something's off a few days later, or it's easy for you to take a look back and say, well, oh, it was their routine at this other parent's home. Even if you're trying to say, well, parenting time with the other parent is not working well, getting a chance to kind of see what they can do in terms of following schedule routines that you've set up for the child, and how that's coming along is very helpful. But in all, the most important thing you need to understand is that communicating is very important when you're dealing with very young children. And it's just, if you're going to have any sort of parenting time, anywhere from a few hours, to an equal shared parenting time, it's very important that, the parents are able to effectively communicate so that the child does not have to suffer the fallout of kind of any conflict or miscommunication or inability to communicate, that sort of thing. So that's my tip for you today. And until next time, I'll say bye for now.
Thanks for listening and joining us in the AP Legal Zone. We hope you enjoyed this episode. You can find more episodes by searching AP Legal Zone on anywhere you watch podcasts. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast today so you can stay connected with any updates and get notified about any new episodes.